Welcome back to the Man Cave and the ManTFup podcast. I'm Kimmy B.
And Lenny.
Lenny actually came across a fantastic clip from one of the biggest podcasters on the planet, Joe Rogan, who always has interesting things to say. Sometimes I agree with him. Sometimes I wholeheartedly disagree. In this situation, I think it's going to make for an interesting conversation. So do you want to go ahead and play the clip, Len?
Hard times create hard men. Hard men create soft times. Soft times create soft men. Soft men create hard times. We are now around soft men and hard times. Yeah. We're in the time of toxic masculinity, right? Where you could be toxically male. Yeah. And then if you're suppressing masculinity, you're going to bring on hard times. It doesn't mean masculinity doesn't mean you're mean. It doesn't mean you're angry. It means strength.
Okay, so I would just like to apologize to everyone for the heavy breather in the background of that clip who was very distracting to me. There's so much to unpack in what Joe Rogan said, and I don't disagree, Len, with a lot of the context, or I should say a lot of what he's saying. I think sometimes it's the context in which it's spun. But let's start with the very first thing. Hard times create hard men create soft times create soft men create hard times, right? So it's a cycle. We've said this, the world is a cycle, right?
Yep,
I mean, just
absolutely.
Pretty much the economy is a cycle. There's a lot of things that are just, cyclical, and it's funny because the less we know about that, then the more likely we are to be blindsided every time something happens. But then there's the guy going, we said this was going to happen because. Give me an example. I mean, just for a reference point, right? When was the last time you think that we had hard times that made hard men?
I've looked into this a little bit, and I mean, it's literally World War II was the biggest, you had. In World War II, you had 16-year-old kids that were lying about their age so that they could go to war, and they knew that there was a huge chance that they were going to get killed or injured, and they lined up at the gates to go fight for our country. Lined up at the gates to do it. And since then, the generations have been getting softer. I mean, it's... Kids barely play outside anymore. It's like, oh, you cut your finger. Let's go to the doctor. Kids have become very soft, and it's to the fault of my generation, the generation before me. Every generation, every parent wants to make it easier for their kids to,
I wonder
have a
when
better
that
life.
Started though. Right? Because when you go back and you watch, some of these limited series, I don't know if you've ever read Ken Follett's Pillars of the Earth, right? Which is an incredible book, historical fiction, but it takes you over a large swath of time. But I don't know, in medieval times, I don't know if every generation of parent was worrying about making a better life for their kids. They were worried about having children so that they could have somebody to work the farm, right?
Yeah,
they were
absolutely.
worrying about having sons so that sons could get daughters bring in a dowry, or hopefully, expand your territory. It was a little bit more transactional. I'm not saying everywhere, but I'm going to speak from what we've learned probably in history classes. The people from this country are you can go back to the Industrial Revolution in this country. You had, immigrants coming here with very large families, right? And them kids was in those factories. At
Absolutely.
8, 9, 10. I mean, that's why we have child labor laws now, right? Because kids were losing arms, because they were getting cut off in looms and, black lung. And
we should just pay them more.
You should just pay them more. Okay, listen. If you want, there's plenty of countries where you can pay them 25 cents.
And it's there's very few countries that have the ability to be as complacent as the people here do.
See, but so we call it complacency, and I'm not going to disagree with your choice of words, but I also don't know that anybody is fighting back against it, right? And I say that because we've discussed ad nauseum on this show, at least my perspective, that America is built on, blue collar workers, right? American people were people who got their hands dirty. And some of those jobs have gone away, whether it's because of a lack of resources or the fact that it was killing people, like the coal industry, Pennsylvania. Then we had manufacturing, right? And unfortunately, that ended up getting outsourced because it just got too expensive to make things here in America, right? Because American workers apparently wanted too much money for their time.
I've looked at that whole thing, and a lot of it is the people who came up with these plans in the 50s and 60s. They were just clearly unsustainable, because you can't have a worker at X amount of dollars and then they retire and you pay them 75% of what you were paying them for the rest of their life.
You're talking about pensions.
Yeah, I mean, it's not sustainable. I mean, I have a friend who's a firefighter, two friends that are firefighters. One was 10 years in or 5 years in before the other one, and he gets, 60% of his pay for the rest of his life, and the other one is going to get like 20%.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, it wasn't sustainable. So, that and the fact that the American companies were allowed to take their jobs overseas and not forced to keep them here and put the money back into our economy.
I feel like there's a lot of moving pieces, and I feel like there's a lot of places where you could start to lay blame. But then we are also a country that loves our luxury. We're also a country that loves our technology. We're also a country that loves to simplify things. Like right now, all the rage is AI, right? Like you think about all the jobs we have whittled away. Toll workers, right? Like just 15, 20 years ago, you used to have a roll of quarters in your car, right? If you wanted to drive from Hollywood to Homestead. Because if you jumped on the turnpike, you were definitely going to, hit 2-3 tolls, right? We've eliminated that with the good old Sun Pass. So those were jobs that would keep people, those were good county, state jobs.
Yeah, there's new jobs that are coming on.
Like
there's new, what do you mean like what? Like the IT people that have to monitor all of that stuff. I think I remember back when Nick was a baby, which was 27 years ago, that whole helicopter mom thing. That was the rage of the 90s. The helicopter mom. Oh, don't let him fall off the chair, And I'm like, he's going to sit down, and I'm like, push the chair out from under him. It's so that whole thing has been amplified, and my kids, they're more sensitive than I was as a child. They're more aware of what bullying is and what it's not, and that kind of stuff. But they're still fairly well adjusted, and they're tough kids. They're not that uber sensitive, hide in the corner kids. They're not scared of talking to people.
Yeah.
Face to face.
Yeah.
Eye to eye, which I think is a big part of it. When you can't have a conversation with somebody sitting across from you because you're intimidated by the whole situation, that causes a problem. Do you agree with the fact that masculinity is under attack?
Here's the deal. And I think that you're either going to feel where I'm coming from, or you're going to be like, you're fucking insane. I don't know that masculinity is under attack. I think that he mentioned toxic masculinity, and I do see a difference there, because I don't necessarily just identify masculine with men. And I feel like that's where the blurry lines come in. And I say that because I feel like, when we talk about our military is not just dudes anymore, right? Like our military is men and women. And I feel
Let's just use tough.
Yeah, I think that that's a better, so do I think that the bad behavior that is typically associated with men is coming under attack to some degree in 2022? Yeah, I think that that's a better, so do I think that the bad behavior that is typically associated with men is coming under attack to some degree in 2022? Yeah. Do I think that the Me Too movement happened in, 2017, and you started to have people having the conversations about workplace dynamic and power dynamic and, what is appropriate and what isn't, and when is it crossing the line? And I think that those are necessary conversations. And you being a person who has daughters, you should want your daughter to be able to walk in somewhere and feel safe in her workspace. On the other side of that, though, I've also said on this show, like, as a female who works in predominantly male driven industries, I'm not mad at the fact that I know how to carry myself even when it can get uncomfortable. And I don't think that every man in particular, and let me tell you something, there are women that can cross lines too. So let's not act like we're always so innocent out here. And I know that there are a lot of women who have no problem using what they have to get what they want and leveraging, you know, their assets in their favor. You know what I mean? So if you were to all of a sudden, if you really want to equal that playing field, you know, like really, really make it equal, and you can, the flip of your hair no longer is a distraction, or your shape, or your
but
face.
that's never going to happen.
But that is my point. So it's kind of like let's have the real conversation. Women have, again, as with men, right? Like, you're taught to use those things. Good looking, charismatic,
Yeah, you're
smart,
taught to be a man.
Use all of no, that's not even being.
But women are taught to be a woman. It's like you can't. We are totally different beings. You're talking about taking the hair flipping and
no, but you're missing
the
my
tight
point.
dress. But you're talking about taking that away from women, right? To make an even playing field, to take that away from women, and you're talking about men not being men. You know, it's like
not every man is handsome, not every man is charismatic,
it's
not every
not
man.
even that.
But what
They're
I'm
still
saying
men.
is, when a woman is beautiful, when she's smart, when she's assertive, that's viewed one way. When a man is handsome, attractive, athletic, charismatic, he's a president, right? Like that's his candidacy. When that woman is those things, she can be a bitch, she can be a flirt, she can be a ball buster, she can be a bunch of different things. So what I'm saying is, you know, I think that there's some pages out of men's book that women could stand to like snatch, right? Like, we should be encouraging women to embrace all the gifts and all the assets and all the things that were given to us and use them the way that men are. Men are taught to use every little shred of whatever. Like, no holds barred. You heard the man. Mm-hmm. Like, be a monster. Be relentless in your pursuit of the things that you want, right? Like, that's what men are taught. And then women, be docile. Don't say too much, you know? Like, all of the bullshit. Like, so to me, when we talk about masculinity, there's some things that I have no problem with women, you know, embracing in that. But if you're going to embrace it as a woman, you can't necessarily knock a man for using it. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. I absolutely do.
Like, I want a man who's a man. Like, we joked about it. There was something that was trending on social media, and it was like, ladies, keep it real. Could you be with a dude that got his ass whooped in a fight? Like, could you stay with a dude if you watched him get his ass beat in a fight? And I was like, I mean, did he get jumped? Like, how many people were there? If it was a one-on-one thing,
what level of ass
and he
beating
got
is,
his
you know?
ass just handed to him, I don't know, because
Like,
I want to feel safe with my man.
Yeah, but are we talking about bitch slapped, or are we talking about beat down?
This is what I'm saying to you, though.
You know?
But that was my joke. Is like, I want a man to be a man. I don't necessarily want a man who's prettier than me. I don't want a man who takes longer to get dressed.
And men want women to be a woman.
Yeah, but again, and I don't want to say what does that mean, but if that means, but that, like, again, that's
we're going to pick this conversation up again on Saturday.
I love that, but to me that question is very open ended, because to some men it's, you know, women are better, you know, seen and not heard and things like that. Whereas again, the things that we value men for, charisma, charm, like you know,
I've always thought that as children. Children are meant to be seen and not heard.
Yeah, but some people feel that way. There's a lot of people that feel that way about women too.
Yeah, and there's a lot of women that are comfortable feeling that way.
Yeah, and I'm not knocking them for that. Mm-hmm. But also don't knock me for being a little bit more assertive. That doesn't make me any less feminine. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, I can still rock the shit out of a 5-inch pair of stilettos. I can throw on a mini dress with the best of them, or a cat suit, and I can, you know, do the hair and all of those. I can do all of that if that's what your definition. But that doesn't necessarily make me a woman, and neither does, you know, cooking in the kitchen.
Absolutely.
Like, I don't like.
But I think it goes. I think the soft man thing goes much farther than just that. I think it goes to the fact that we no longer have, you know, physical education in school, in public schools. It's not required, you know.
But why?
I don't know why it's not required. Just encouraging exercise is not required because, oh, well, you know, yeah, you're not as strong as the other kid. And yeah, I feel bad. Maybe you should talk to somebody. It's okay. You know, all that shit's not okay because our bodies require things to be healthy. And if you're encouraging or pacifying people who are not healthy over.
But isn't that happening at home? Like, so who are we mad at?
It's
Who are we blaming
it's
for this?
happening in society.
Because you don't get to blame public schools when you're
No.
constantly telling public schools they don't get to raise your children. So again, it's like everything we do. You know what
Yeah.
my biggest frustration is, and it started before we got into this conversation. It's the double talk. It's the cycle, and the reason why things go in a cycle is because we never fix the problem. Right? That's how you end up back at square one. What is it? The definition of doing the same thing repeatedly and expecting a different outcome is the definition of insanity, right? Mm-hmm. We're a bunch of insane mofos just running around doing the same shit over and over again and getting nowhere, having the same conversations over and over again and getting nowhere. Like, and that's what's beginning to frustrate me because it's like, okay, we can talk. Why is there no P? That doesn't even make sense, right? As a lefty, right? Why is there no PE? We should be healthy. Like,
yes, here's the frustrating part about that. While we're all arguing about this, smart, intelligent, what you would think would be, you know, upper level people are having these arguments and they realize they're going in a circle and yet nothing is getting done.